Okay, my friends, I'm sorry that I couldn't be here with you today, so I made a video for you so that you can still glaze. So I need you to be super good for the sub so that you can get this done, okay? My face jug was not put in the bisque firing with yours, so I'm going to use this turtle here to show you how you're going to apply the glaze. So first I want to point out the bisque. A bisque is a first firing. So your clay pots, the last time you saw them, they were wet, and then they got dry, and they turned bone dry. So that means all the moisture is out, and they're ready to be fired. And then they fired, and they turned from glaze or from clay to ceramic. So you can feel that they're actually pretty hard, but they're still breakable like glass. So bisque is first firing. Now today we're going to apply the glaze, and the glaze is simply a glass coating. So when you look at your piece, when it comes out of the kiln again, this glaze is going to turn into a glass, and it's not going to look this color. So this color brown will look completely different after it comes out of the kiln in the glaze firing. So what you're going to use today, you have this pinkish color glaze. This is actually a clear glaze. This is where, because our clay is white, wherever you want your piece to be white, if you want your teeth white or your eyeballs or any other details, then you're going to use the pink glaze, and then the metallic brown glaze we're going to use all over. And the reason why I want you guys to stick to just one color is because when we looked at the original examples of the sculptures from West Coastal Africa, a lot of them were made out of wood or bronze, so they had a really dark color. So when the slaves were kidnapped and brought over to America, that is probably one of the reasons why they used that dark glaze on their pottery, okay? And I want you to think about the difference between form and function. So form is decorative. Its use is just to decorate, and that's what the face jugs were more primarily about, the form than the function. But the pots that they made before they made the face jugs were functional. They were used to store food. So yours are not going to be functional. You're not going to be able to glaze on the inside of your pot to get an adequate cover for you to drink out of it. So we need to be safe. So I'm going to start with a clear glaze wherever I want white. And I've got two brushes. I've got a smaller brush and a big brush. And I want you to remember, whenever you paint, you always want to use that tip of the brush. You don't want to push down so hard on the brush that you're painting with this part of the brush next to the ferrule. This ruins the paintbrush. Okay, and then it also, your painting, it does not have as good of a quality of craftsmanship when you scrub with your brush. So you want to make sure that your brush is loaded with paint, with glaze rather. You don't want it to be so loaded that it's actually dripping all over the place, but you want it to be so loaded that your painting doesn't appear scratchy. And you'll see what I mean with the scratchiness when you get to when I get to the brown. So I've got this adequately covered here. I'm covering even all of the carvings that I put in, so that it covers up. You don't want to leave those out. You have to cover on top of them. So even if you have your name covered, carved in, you want to cover your name so that it actually shows up. If you paint around it, it's not going to show up as much. So now I'm ready to apply the brown glaze. And if you notice, when I pass over the piece, the textured pieces aren't getting covered in. So what you're going to do is just dab in those areas. So if you notice, when I'm painting, the paint doesn't look scratchy. It's got a good coverage. It's covering everything. I'm going to show you what I mean by scratchy. So when you paint, this is scratchy right here. So this is scratchy. You don't have enough paint in your brush if it looks like that. So you want to make sure that you have an adequate amount of paint in your brush and then paint over it. Okay, so if you can tell, I am dipping frequently every couple of brush strokes so that I can get that covered up. And then just dab in all those white spots. That's really important. Now, we do need to apply 3 coats of glaze, and you have to wait until each coat is dry before you apply the second coat. And I'm going to show you how quickly this glaze dries. So you can see here where it looks chalky, that is all dry. So this part here is ready for a second coat. So I painted this direction. Now for my second coat, I'm going to paint this direction. And again, you need to make sure that you are dabbing in all of those spots that don't get covered. Okay? You may not paint the bottom of your pot because it will stick to the kiln shelf when the glaze is fired and it turns to glass. It melts and it will stick to the shelf. So do not paint the bottom. You can paint the inside of your rim, but you can't paint all the way down on the inside of your pot because that would be wasteful. I'm going to show you what happens if you don't apply the right amount of glaze. So these are test tiles here. This is blue glaze, and this is just with 1 coat. So you can see the texture of the clay in there still, and the color is very faint. And this is what it looks like with 2 coats. So it's a little bit darker and a little smoother, but I can still feel that texture. And this is what 3 coats looks like. So you can really see the difference in the color of the glaze. And now all I feel is smooth glass coating. I don't feel the texture in there. So you want to make sure that you are adequately covering your piece when you're glazing and not leaving any of those white spots. So after it dries, you can really see where those white spots are, so I can go back in and glaze on top of those. You only have today to glaze these, so if you don't get these done by the end of the class, I'm still going to glaze or fire them, so whatever you have done will be what you have. So today is it. You need to make sure that you are focused on getting your work done and not socializing too much. If you need to get your glaze to dry a little quicker, take a piece of paper or a napkin or whatever and just wave it so that it will dry faster. Okay, have fun, and I will see you guys in April. Thanks, bye.